So let's talk about more Aquaman. James Wan, who has now directed two Aquaman movies for DC. At one point, he was meant to direct like this Trench movie as well, and it doesn't look like that ever came together quite the way they wanted it to, which is unfortunate because I would have really liked to see the Trench. I think what we got to see of the Trench in the first Aquaman movie was quite impressive. But James Wan, as a creator, of course, he has grown up with New Line Cinema and over at Warner Brothers, and so working at DC was sort of a natural transition. But in recent times, he has sort of made the move over to Blumhouse. He's got a production deal over there with Universal, and he's making a lot more horror movies. So the future of James Wan and DC seems a bit unclear, especially with the possibility of Aquaman being recast and there not being any Aquaman projects in the first chapter, I should say, of the new DCU, at least so far of what we have seen from James Gunn and Peter Safran and their plans. So James Wan, as a result, has sort of been, reminiscing a little bit on his time with DC, the work that he has done, what he maybe would have liked to have done, what he has been able to accomplish. So John, could you give us some insight? Because I believe James Wan was recently speaking, I think, while promoting this new Aquaman sequel that he's got coming out. He's been talking a lot about his experience working with DC as a franchise and maybe his hopes and dreams and what he did in the past and maybe some what he hopes to do in the future. Can you give us a little more insight into what James Wan has been saying?
I believe it was about looking back on mainly this movie specifically, Lost Kingdom specifically, how he had a lot of great times working on it and working on the first Aquaman movie. It was mainly that side of it's mainly the DC stuff, but he was just talking about like how he had great times working with Jason Momoa and great times working with just all of the actors trying to skirt around the Amber Heard things. But it was mainly him talking about how great of a time he had and how this wasn't how he's not trying to buy into the controversy. It was kind of like him talking fondly, but also kind of being a bit more PR. How he was trying to say, well, downplaying the reshoots. How it's like, well, this is just how movies work, and don't worry, we're still delivering a great pop product, and we're still gonna have a great time with it. Like for instance, he talked about the Batman cameo, whether it was when it was supposed to be released before Flash, whether it was going to be Michael Keaton or Ben Affleck, because we had that picture on Instagram with Jason Momoa and Ben Affleck and all of that. And then he also was talking about like the Heard controversy and how it was always gonna she was always gonna have a smaller role. And then his most fun one was definitely he's like, I'm so excited that Topo, which was Aquaman's, sidekick and one of his many sidekicks in the comics, how he was talking about that and how he was just all of that information was sort of just like buying into like his experiences working on these films, and how even though he is working heavily with Blumhouse, I believe he's producing another film called Night Swim, um, and probably more Saw movies because of how Saw X came about. But yeah, I feel like he definitely was trying to talk about how great of an experience this Lost Kingdom was, as well as the first one, but mainly with Lost Kingdom.
I mean, yeah, James Wan is a pretty positive dude. Like, he's throughout all of the behind the scenes stuff that you see from the Aquaman movies, whenever you see him doing press, he's always like very on the positive side. He's always spinning things in the positive, which is a good thing to, a thing to have for a director. Because directors work in such a stressful environment. They're the ones who need to provide all the answers to everybody, and so I think it's obviously a good attribute to have. And yeah, I think a lot of what he's said in this press tour and what he's talked about with regards to the production troubles that Aquaman 2 have had. I don't think that a lot of those issues are out of the ordinary per se, especially when you consider what
Okay.
the first Aquaman movie went through. And that movie kind of came together in post-production as well, had reshoots, and it's quite common these days. Like a lot of Marvel movies do this all the time, and it's built into their budgets that they do reshoots. So I don't think, there's any controversy here necessarily. I think that article that came out a little while ago that we went over, where it was talking about all this trouble with Aquaman. Yeah, I think it was a little concerning that they had to do so many reshoots, and of course, they're cutting things out and they're splicing new scenes in, whether it's the Batman cameo or maybe cutting out a few Amber Heard scenes. I'm sure there were other characters whose scenes got cut. So I don't think any of that is really out of the ordinary because that's just part of what the film production looks like. That's how
Right.
movies are made. So yeah, I mean, I think James Wan has been an excellent part of the DC stable of directors. I would certainly hope to see him return maybe for other projects down the road in the new DCU, whether it's doing more Aquaman projects, whether that's with Jason Momoa or somebody else in their role, or maybe taking on a different character. Of course, James Wan has done a variety of movies. He's done horror movies. He was in the Fast and Furious franchise, so we know that he can handle himself with large, expansive storytelling, and that's what Aquaman has been so far. So I'm excited to see what Aquaman 2 looks like, and hopefully, if you go by what James Gunn, not James Gunn, but James Wan is saying, we're gonna get a fantastic experience. So, guys, let us know in the comments below what you think about James Wan's comments, and if you are looking forward to Aquaman 2 yourself, of course, you can like and subscribe for more content like this. We talk about all things DC each and every day here on DC Daily.